All right, hello and welcome back to another Let's Backflip show. One of these days I'm going to get the intro right. Welcome back to another happy hour. I'm Ryan Fring, creative director here at Backflip. Me, as always, we've got John Shoemaker.
Hello, it is me.
The best part too is that I had it up on Facebook and I also just heard the whole echo of everything. So this is great. This is why we do live, because it's so much fun. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today is going to be fun. We've had Sarah Kochan on before, but joining us just to make it more interesting is her husband, Dave Uhrich. Hey guys, how's it going?
Oh,
good. How are you?
We're great. Thanks for coming. Yeah, I was so excited when Sarah was like, hey, for our part 2, what do you think if my husband joined? And then I did a quick search after you sent his name, and I was like, yes, this guy looks awesome. We've got to have him on here.
Dave is very entertaining.
Yeah, you definitely bring the coolness factor up on our show. You know, we're just kind of a bunch of nerdy white guys, and you definitely have that rocker vibe. So why don't you tell people a little bit more about you guys? We'll start with Sarah. You've been on before, but just give a little intro of who you are.
Sure. So my name's Sarah Kochan. I own 2 businesses right now. I have a business called I Achieve Learning that I started back in 2018. It's a tutoring and music company. And I was a teacher back then and started the business while I was teaching full time, grew the business, and was able to resign from teaching in 2016 to run the business full time. And then since then, about a year and a half ago, I started doing business coaching for female entrepreneurs. So I now work with women across the world to help them start and build their own online business. So yeah, that's a little bit about my background. I do both businesses. I love them both. And even before the pandemic, I was working from home. So it's kind of nice because Dave and I always work from home aside from COVID. So it's been a lot of fun working with Dave.
Yeah,
and we talked a little bit about it last time, but you're kind of a boss lady. Like you didn't have enough to do running one business, so you decided to create another one to help other people with their businesses.
That's right. I mean, it's my personality. I've always been a go-getter and a busybody type person. So I like creating things. I love helping people. That's kind of how my personality is.
That's awesome. All right, now Dave, who are you and what do you do?
Well, I've been a guitar player all my life. I've done all different kind of things in the industry, music, from releasing records and touring all over the United States and Europe. I've endorsed products and done videos. I've had music played by the London Philharmonic Orchestra and composed for some film and done jingle work, and God, the list, it goes on and on and on. So I play in bands. I don't even know where to start. I have actually a recording studio here too, and I've produced a bunch of records and demos for other musicians, and recording and producing and engineering. The list in the music industry is kind of, you got to wear a lot of different hats. So fortunately, I've worn a ton of different hats, and so it's kind of I just consider it, I play guitar. So.
And he teaches from home too.
Yeah, I saw that too. You know, which is fantastic. The teaching along with being kind of a rocker. Like if I were to get into something like guitar, I would love to have somebody who actually, you know, has played and currently plays and travels and records. Like that would be the best. I mean, I feel like our classes would just be me grilling you, asking questions about your experiences and stuff.
Some experiences with Eddie Van Halen or Tony Iommi or some crazy rock star. Yeah. No, I do also teach. I do a lot of teaching. Actually, I've taught at a number of universities. I've taught at 4 different colleges. I've done seminars and what they call it private counseling at a place called MI, which is Musicians Institute in California and LA. In Boston and Berkeley, I've done seminars and clinics there too. So, yeah, teaching is something. I put out some books too, some books from Mel Bay, but people don't buy books anymore. They do everything on the internet.
Yeah, you gotta make the YouTube version of those books.
Yeah, I know. Everything's just constantly going to be everything's moving towards being digitized, you know.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Well, and that's fun too. We talked a little bit about the move to online last time with Sarah. But what has that been like, for you guys? Actually, before we do this, let's remember this is a happy hour, so we got to talk about what we're drinking before we do anything serious here. So, what do you guys got?
We got mimosas this morning.
Mimosa.
I love that. It makes you feel a little bit better too, because it's like healthy.
That's right.
That's right. How about you guys?
Yeah. What do you got, John?
What do you?
Speaking of health, I have cognac. I don't know if that's healthy or not. Ryan can tell you what kind it is. It's from a bottle in his office.
Okay.
Yeah, this is great. So I hadn't had cognac before this. This is actually a bottle we got in Minneapolis. Crazy random story, just, talking to people. We're at a restaurant. We're working up there. We go out to eat in the evenings. We're at a restaurant, which is a recommendation from an agency. And they say, oh, yeah, go to FEMA's. Eli, we know Eli over there. They'll take care of you. So we went there to FEMA's, had a great experience. It's like this Moroccan Spanish. It's not fusion. They're different dishes, but it's just this very kind of upscale. Looks kind of like a gangster movie on the inside, which is just wonderful. There's chandeliers everywhere, and it's very beautiful. Yeah. But
Nice.
we're like asking Eli, we're like, hey, where do you want to go after this? You want to hang out, just trying to be personable and whatnot. And he's like, well, actually, I'm a part of this social club. There's probably nobody there, but you guys can go hang out there, and you just want to get a bottle or something. And so he's like, I recommend this cognac. So just a crazy random, experience of talking to somebody, and then you get this, the experience continues.
Yeah.
Have you guys tried that whiskey called Screwball?
No.
It's fantastic. Oh, you got to try it. It's peanut butter whiskey.
Oh.
And we have some peanut. We don't know how.
And tell them the story of how we found it.
Well, we had just gotten to pick up our rings for
Our wedding.
Mm-hmm. And directly across the street from the place where we picked up our rings was a bar. I'm sitting at the bar, and there's not going on because it's kind of COVID-like. Everybody's covered, but so I see this whiskey bottle, and it's like it said on it Screwball. I'm like, what the hell is that? Screwball. So the bartender, answers the question. First thing she does is she goes, no. Dangerous. And so she just immediately poured a shot for both of us.
Oh no.
Oh. We lost him. Here, I'm gonna go get our peanut butter whiskey. There they are. We got you back. There we go.
Okay.
There.
So did the whiskey story just kind of like zap the computer out? I guess the computer had.
You know what? I think you're not supposed to talk about that whiskey, and that's what happened. You know, the social media people came for you and they shut it down.
Media people. Well, maybe that's what it is. Maybe they shut it down. So I don't know. But anyway, so it was like we took a couple of shots, and we were like, "This is fantastic."
It's really good.
Yeah.
Somebody does not. You will like this whiskey. Yeah.
I'm gonna go grab one. We actually have one. We have a peanut butter whiskey that somebody gave us a few months ago for an event that we had. I'm gonna go grab that and see if that is Screwball or what the heck that is. I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah.
Probably is.
It might be. I don't know. It could be. There was an event that we had here, and somebody just brought this random package of stuff, and there was this peanut butter whiskey with that. That was the first time that I had that. There's a brewery that we do a lot of work with called Carbon 4 in Madison here, and they released it's actually part of they have a Quick Trip series where they've had some like signature ones that they've made for Quick Trip, and they have this ice cream peanut butter cup stout or whatever. So that's the other peanut butter one that I've had.
Yeah, we're good friends with Carbon 4, and we always say you ain't shit unless you're repping. So we always gotta talk about their wares. Yeah, this one is Coastal Creek, handcrafted peanut butter flavored whiskey, which is fantastic in short little doses, you know, because it's so peanut buttery.
Yeah, that's the thing about Screwball too. You just
be like,
things.
drink the whole bottle in an hour. You're puking.
So I'm going to abandon the previous topic that I was going towards. Maybe we'll get back there. But I'm curious, like your guys' story, you know, Sarah, you're like a mover and shaker. You're like this powerful, I mean, in my mind, you're like this kick-ass entrepreneurial woman in Chicago. Dave, you're a rocker. How does this happen? You know, how did you guys meet? Like,
I don't know.
We're going to tell our story.
You
want me to tell it? Okay.
Yeah.
So, oh gosh, this is back in 2018. And both Dave and I, you know, had kind of, I don't want to say bad experiences, but not real good luck with, you know, people in our past and dating and so forth. And so we were both kind of at the end of the ropes with dating and so forth. Good? Is it good?
Oh my gosh. Sorry. Yeah. It's so good.
And one of Dave's friends had told him that there's somebody in Des Plaines hiring guitar teachers. And the funny thing about this whole story is Dave and I lived less than a mile apart from each other for over 20 years. And we didn't even know. Literally down the block from each other.
Never ran into each other. Yeah. Had no clue about each other.
Right. So the one day Dave calls me and he's like, you know, who are you? Are you hiring guitar teachers? And we ended up talking on the phone for almost an hour and really good conversation, and found out that he taught at the college that I actually went to. We knew a lot of the same people. And it was funny because I kept asking him for like his resume and his application, because that's what I do when I hire people. He still has not given me his resume. But anyways, he's like, why don't you stop by my house? I have a studio here. And, you know, we're all just, you know, talking about business and so forth. So about a week or so later, I went by his house to meet him and see his studio. And I was literally at his house for over 3 hours. We just had a great conversation. I have a music background. We were kind of, you know, playing music in his studio and talking. And at that time, Dave's mom was actually really, really sick. And my mom had passed away the year before. So we were talking to moms and so forth, and just had this really good connection. And I remember leaving there that day thinking to myself, who the heck is this guy? Where did he come from? And then ever since that, we were pretty much inseparable. I know Dave had called me that week to kind of just say hi. And we were like high school kids all week. We were on the phone for 3-4 hours at a time at night. Just talking. And then that following week, you tell that about, you know, going out. Tell that part of the story.
Oh, well, I had, you know, she came over to check out my studio. I had never seen her. I'd never seen how incredibly beautiful she is. I'm near passed out when I saw her. Like, oh my God, what is that? So anyway, so I was absolutely smitten, and it's just very obvious how beautiful she is. So we had talked every single day, like Monday for 3 hours, Tuesday for 3 hours, Wednesday for 3 hours. And I'm thinking, you know, this started as, you know, business related, but not, normal business calls don't last 6, 9, 12, counting in hours back into 3. So, you know, so on Thursday, it was pretty apparent. I'm like, she's interested. So I said, all right, tomorrow when I talk to her, I'm going to try to invite her somewhere and try to see if she, you know, wants to do something this weekend.
How many days was that before the first meeting, and then before, like, hey, let's go hang out?
A week or two, something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So from first time contacting her, but so I told her, I said, I'm like, would you like to, you know, go out this weekend somewhere? And I felt like a child, like a 16-year-old kid. Like, oh, you want to go for pizza? Or
yeah, you want to go? Maybe we'll go steady. I don't know.
Yeah, I want to go. You want to wear my coat? Anyway, so it was Friday night. I know specifically it was 5 o'clock. The reason I called, and I figured that whatever, I called her and I thought, you know, she's got anything going on, I want to be first in line for what's going on. And so I said, would you like to go out tomorrow? There was these auto races, and I'm not really all that even into autos. And I said, do you want to go to see the drag races, And she said, no, I can't go to see them. And I was like, oh, but she immediately goes, but I can go out tonight. And I'm like, yeah.
You're playing with my emotions.
So I said, sure, I'm only meeting with the president, but I can cancel.
Yeah.
So I immediately said, sure. Well, yeah. I wasn't really prepared for that, but I goes, well, what time do you want to? I'll come pick you up. And she goes, yeah. How about 7:00? So I'm like, sure. It takes me about 6 minutes to shower, so I had about an hour and 54 minutes to figure out what to do next. And most of that was included in, like, should I buy flowers? Should I buy her some roses, or should I not buy roses? So I sat around for the next maybe hour and a half going, should I buy flowers? Should I not buy flowers? If I buy flowers and show up with flowers and she's not interested in romantically with me, I mean, this is going to be a really uncomfortable business.
Yeah.
And on the other side of the coin, you know what? If you're going to mess up with flowers.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to make them. So I showed up there with flowers, and we had an awesome night. And
Yeah.
that was it. Game on.
Yeah.
So that idea going down swinging, you're going to go for it or not at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go big or go home.
Right. And it was just so crazy how we've lived less than a mile apart from each other for over 20 years and just never even knew about each other.
Yeah, never, and the weird thing about it, though, of course, she's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen on earth. But other than that, the funny thing is we've had these conversations that started from, initially talking with her that, like, for whatever reason, we just simply get along perfectly,
Mm-hmm.
She just is really easy to chat with. For me, I'm kind of quirky. She's kind of quirky. And for whatever reason, quirks just like fit, so there's no weirdness, relationships that I'd been in the past, there were some good moments and some not so good moments, like for everybody, but this one is just special. So I just, it's just best thing that's ever happened to me.
Aw, me too.
Yeah, that's awesome. And now, how long have you guys been married?
About 5 months.
Oh, that's awesome.
Got married on 11/11 of 2020. So yeah, it's just been a couple months, but we've been together for close to 3 years now. So. Oh
yeah, that's great. You can work out, and especially as adults. I got married when I was 22. Still married. What is that? 2008. So 13 years now.
Right.
But just thinking about those quirks, like you were saying, Dave, it's always fun to see how those come out. And if you've been in a relationship for several years, hopefully you worked out some of those. But it's always interesting and fun when you get married, and then you're like, okay, I can't just, to a degree, I can't just storm off and, we're done with our relationship. We're stuck, we're stuck together in this marriage. So we're going to figure this out. John always talks about this. Maybe it's a book or this idea that's like, whose quirk is it anyway? And it came into the office because I get annoyed by really stupid little things, like somebody leaves 4 seconds on the microwave. I'm like, first off, why can't you appropriately estimate how long your food takes to cook? You're really stopping at 4 seconds, like, oh, it's going to get too hot. Second, you leave 4 seconds on there, and I come in and I have to hit clear. But what I'll do is I'll put my food in there, and then I'll start typing, and it's like, oh, it's not working. Oh, somebody left the thing on. Okay, let me clear that for whoever was just here. But John's brought that up because I have a lot of these stupid things that are like, well, whose quirk is that anyway? Maybe I could be a little more patient.
That's right.
Some book, for some reason, my wife and I, we met in high school and started dating, and then obviously stayed together, got married. For some reason, very early on, we were like reading these like relationship books, just like how to get along type things, and it's not that we're perfect at it. There's still a lot of things that we're working on, but that was one of the ones that stuck out to me. Whose quirk is it anyway? Is just kind of the like, is it their quirk for squeezing the toothpaste tube in the middle, or is it your quirk that you can't handle it when somebody does that? I like that perspective, because we all have the way that we do things, and just because we think it needs to be a certain way, it's anyway.
There are some things that are just wrong, though, like squeezing from the middle of the toothpaste.
Yes, let's be clear. That is the wrong way.
That is wrong. Toilet paper going the wrong way, so you can't actually see where it is. It should come over the top.
I was gonna say that, right? It drives me crazy.
Yeah. So kind of that point I was getting to earlier, just with like the last year and stuff, like what has it been like, moving online or just doing things remotely? Like, maybe I'll start with like, how's Chicago? What's it been like in Chicago for you guys?
I mean, we obviously had to adapt, and I think I talked to you last time about when COVID hit in March. I had always wanted to take my tutoring business online and never really did it until COVID hit. And for everybody, it was kind of, a big surprise, but we adapted pretty quickly, and we still continue to do most of our tutoring sessions online. And moving forward, we're going to do a combination of online and in person too. So it was fine. And then for my coaching business, everything has been online, and that's been wonderful because I can work with women literally kind of across the world. So that's been awesome for me. And then what about you in terms of music and stuff?
Well, I mean, private teaching, there was some online stuff. But the truth of the matter is that the live music playing was zero,
Yeah,
so
it just died.
It was over. I mean, and so, I mean, I know a lot of the people in the music industry are just really suffering as a result of COVID, And I mean, and the thing is, I ended up having COVID. I got COVID in July last year, and mine was pretty medium. I would say it was like, it's a hardy virus. You know what I mean? I didn't at any point in time feel like, oh my God, I got to go to the doctor, I'm going to die. You know what I'm saying? I didn't feel that, but it was definitely like a really, really bad flu or something for a while. But everybody's got such a weird feeling about how to approach it. I think the weirdest thing with COVID is there's people that are, I don't even know how to explain it. Like there's people that like sort of believe that that there's almost no virus, and then there's people out there that think you should be running around in a hazmat suit,
Right.
And so the music industry, I guess what I don't get is I had neck surgery in about 2 months before COVID kicked. So I had a spinal fusion done to my neck.
Oh.
And so my doctor, who's a brain surgeon, when I was a kid, I used to give people a hard time if they started acting like a know-it-all. I'd go, hey, what are you, a surgeon? Well, my brain surgeon can go, yes, he's a brain surgeon. But he was like not, taking, patients face to face. Yet you could go to like Walmart and get food, or, you could go to Home Depot and pick up kitchen ceramic tile. I mean, everything was so weird, and the music industry just stopped, So all of the music people were like, I don't understand how this industry can be up and running. This industry can be partially up and running, but yet this industry is completely zero. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. There's people that rely on the music industry for stuff, and I think that it's been really, really difficult for certain aspects of the live music industry and bars and things.
Yeah, that's an interesting point too, and it's such a weird thing. And maybe in 20 years we can look back and have a little bit better understanding of things. But you look at the different industries, but you look at different states, like Florida wide open, California not wide open, very similar numbers. So like, what does science tell us? Well, I don't know if we know enough yet, unfortunately. And like Michigan, very closed down and on the rise again. Whereas Wisconsin, we're doing really, really well lately, this spring. And we were medium open.
Right.
So, I mean, that's the thing about it too, which is really, really strange. And I certainly don't want to talk about politics, but there was that, it was woven into the political fabric, and it was a divisive kind of time and in history, no matter who where you're from, what party you're from, or who you voted for, whatever, I don't remember a time or a topic that was more polarizing than COVID, And I mean, it's really strange because there's a comic part of this, I had friends that I went to high school with that I know did not get college degrees. All of a sudden, they're virologists. It's like,
yes. Experts on everything, yeah.
talking to me about RNA and stuff. What are you talking about? I'm not doing this. I'm doing this. I'm not. What? What are you talking about? You're not a doctor. You know?
Well, that's the difficult thing too. Just the information out there, and then headlines, reading headlines, and being like, "Well, I saw this," and you're like, "Okay, well, did you read the study?" Or comparing, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, there's so much information, and like, what can we do?" And I don't know. I'm just super curious in 20 years when we can look back and have a little bit better understanding of what the F went on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really the thing about it. Like it really became like, where do you draw the line? Do you listen to the incredibly terrified people on this side? Do you listen to the incredibly, like, I don't know what it is, people on this side? And you have I feel like I've always been sort of a middle of the roader kind of guy with this.
Sure.
Just like, if you have to pay your bills, try to pay your bills. I mean, why not do that? And then if you're on the other side of the coin, it's like, if somebody, like, nobody knows what anybody else's position is. So I mean, if there's somebody out there with a mask on and driving in a car, you don't really know. Like, we make fun of that person, right? He goes, "Hey, there's an idiot next to me. He's driving with a mask on," but you really don't actually know if that's his grandma's car, and that his grandma is, he's borrowing it. You don't really know. I mean, so we in society, like with now, you don't really know what somebody else's position is. You know what I mean? Where you see somebody walking around with, like, no mask on, you don't know, like, they've already been vaccinated, or maybe they already had it, like me. I think right now, having this dirty, crappy mask on in my pocket, I don't wash my mask every day. I mean, isn't that worse for me as a person who already had it? This grime on my face. I don't know. So we don't really know the else's position,
Well, I
don't know.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think you're right about the polarization, the dividing, that really came out of it. Like, that's the and I can segue this into a question I was going to ask you about going forward from here. But like, the biggest negative out of all of it, I've talked to a lot of people about, like, kind of the spirit of the thing. I'm like, the spirit of the thing is the biggest problem, because there's a lot of people, like, and I know that the comparisons that people have made to, like, people make comparisons to Nazi Germany and stuff, which are not, probably overstating it, and that's not very respectful of people who actually dealt with Nazi Germany situations.
Right.
But the spirit of looking around and being, being concerned, being skeptical of what somebody else is doing, and kind of like watching everybody, and that's not a good thing. It's never been a good thing for for society as a whole. And I just keep looking for. I'm I'm a pretty eternal optimist, but it's been very challenging to maintain that and try to see the positives, the good things. And so this kind of gets more like work focus, I guess. But one of the things that I've been looking for and asking people for is, what do you not want to do anymore? But what are the good things that have come out of it? Like, it's actually the same category for me. I'm both very tired of, like, video meetings, but at the same time, recognizing that, like, I've had way more, like, video calls with family members and friends than I have ever before. And we had the technology to do it. Like, we had FaceTime and stuff, and maybe now we'll continue those habits a little bit. But I still prefer, I still want to get together in person, but it doesn't mean that I don't need to see anyone, for my parents live a ways off, and I see them in person twice a year, but we can chat with the kids, frequently. So.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I know that's changed is I'm in a new band now, and we're playing every weekend now. So we're out and playing. So long story short, it's like everybody that does come out to things now, when you said something positive, it's like the positive thing is, like, people that are out and about now are really enjoying themselves. It's like, it's almost like having year of like quarantine, at least from live music, has been, now that things are beginning to open up, it just feels like a really long winter, and you have your first hot day, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I hate the snow. I'm leaving. I'm so happy, it just feels like that. I don't know. I mean, I think when it comes to like people being around people too, I mean, I know for myself, and Sarah and I have talked about it, just the commitment to being, more loving and more connected, because it's just when you're not able to just kind of go out and hang with people and friends and family, like with your father,
Yeah, absolutely. My dad's 81 years old, and he actually lives right down the block from me too. But it was tough not being able to see him for a little bit of time, and just being cognizant of, his age and everything like that too. And when you just want to run up and give somebody a hug and stuff like that. And even though we have been around each other a little bit, like in the beginning of COVID, it's tough. Yeah.
Yeah. We have a nephew who he has a chromosomal deletion. I believe that's what it is. And so he's developmentally behind. And what that kind of amounts to as well for his health is like he gets sick from everything. Like if a kid has a cold and they're remotely around him, he'll get it and it turns into pneumonia, right? So we had kind of already been in this space with them, my sister and that side of like, hey, if you do got a little something, let's just maybe stay away or stay apart or reschedule for another time. So that was actually kind of helpful, because then the same thing with COVID, we're like, well, this kid absolutely shouldn't get this, because even the normal flu would just be really devastating on him. So that's kind of been nice. But now too, like I got the vaccine, the first shot last week, and I don't necessarily think that I would be largely impacted unless there's something about my biology that, we don't know until I get really sick in a certain way. But I typically don't get very sick. I don't get the flu very strongly. I'm very active, very healthy. So I wasn't concerned about it. But it's more of just like a politeness, or kind of like a social thing of like, I don't mind doing this. I've gotten the flu, vaccine the last couple of years just because the doctor, it almost seems like is selling it. And with this one, it makes people more comfortable and it's more social. And so I'm kind of like, okay, yeah, whatever. But I've also had like, and I don't know if this is tied to it, but I've had headaches off and on for the last like week and a half. And it could be tied to that. It could be tied to something else eating, but it also makes me feel a little less indestructible, which I think a lot of people had to face that realization, like, hey, we're not indestructible. Even if this is, a little bit more dangerous than the flu, like, well, that could be the thing that kills you and you don't know.
That's a big point too, Ryan. And we've talked about that with friends and family, and man, it's so hard to weave your way through these conversations and try to be like empathetic and just be caring, for everyone, and understand the different anxieties. But I've been trying to encourage those that I think have been too afraid, with like, there's so many things in life. Like, what are we all doing? Jumping in cars every day and driving around. Like, that's so dangerous. Like, people are gonna die. People die in car accidents all the time. And like, we've got very close to our family a loved one who died in a motorcycle accident a few years back, and like, nobody saw it coming. And obviously we try to do things that are responsible, but it's just, we can't live with like that idea that we have so much control over every tiny little aspect of our lives. And I think that's what people have kind of been feeling. But then that's where like the struggle, the fight against each other comes, is like, some people are like, hey, we can't control everything. Like, we got to go out and live. We got to run our businesses, and then other people are like, I can't control everything, so I need you to not be around me so that I can,
Well, and I think that gets back to Dave's point about, you mentioned, Dave, you're kind of like in the middle on things. And what I feel like that is, and I feel like I'm very similar, is like, you're trying to be reasonable. You're taking this, okay, I hear your concern. I hear your concern. Now, what's kind of the thing that could work for everybody and make sense and be not super extra reactionary?
Yeah, and I mean, you know, for everybody except for doctors and maybe people that work as virologists or whatever in labs, I mean, for everybody else, this is just belief. You have to believe that the people that you're getting information
Right.
are telling you the right information, you know? And why I think it was political, and I don't want to discuss, you know, this particular candidate or this candidate, but as an American citizen, I have the right to vote for whomever I want. I can change my vote the moment before it's cast. You know, and that makes me an American for voicing my opinion. But in this particular situation, it was, you know, like that issue was tied. So it was just really hard to sit back and connect the dots here and try to go, what's the reasonable thing to do? I can't walk around in a hazmat suit. I can't do that because, you know, and on the other side of the coin, my bank still wants me to pay them. So
Yes, absolutely.
Somewhere between there is where I've got to figure out how to pay my bills and do what I got to do, you know? And so I didn't understand each of the sides as an extremist scenario. I didn't like the extreme side, you know? To me, I'm an American citizen. I want to be like, if I can do something that helps neighbors of mine in some way, I'll do it. I always wear the mask when I'm out. I was always washing my hands and stuff like that, you know, when I the little stuff. But then, you know, you hear them change. 1 minute, Dr. Fauci was saying early on that wearing a mask is nothing, you know, and wear the gloves in your hands. And, you know, then the next thing, it was like the gloves were no good and you got to wear the mask. And then now I you know, so I mean, I'm at the point where right now I'm COVID. I'm on COVID overload. Like if somebody told me that you had ads, I'd be like, okay, whatever. I don't know. I'm out.
Yeah. Well, and you point out like personal, I was just gonna say, you point out like personal responsibility and personal social, I don't know, maybe responsibility as well, is like, what can you do for your neighbor, right? Like arguing on Facebook is, you know, it's like pissing into the wind, right? You're just going to get it in your mouth and you're not going to enjoy it. And it's helping nobody, right? So, you know, that aside, you're talking about being reasonable and being loving to your neighbor, which I think is always a good, important thing.
Right. Yeah. And one thing I was going to throw in there too is what I learned out of this whole situation is to, you know, just really kind of slow down and chill out and be grateful for all the things you actually do have around you. You know, I'm a very go-getter person, and luckily Dave has helped me a lot to kind of just chill. It's going to be okay. Because I remember back when COVID first hit, you know, and tutoring was rocky for a little bit there. And there was a couple nights where I had breakdowns like, okay, my business is done. And he was like, Dave is cool as a cucumber. He's always like, it's going to be okay. So, you know, just being appreciative of people around you and being grateful for what we actually do have.
Yeah.
That's another element that, you know, if I have to look at like, okay, so coming out of this, dear God, hopefully we're coming out of this, is like, what do I take with me? Well, I really hope that a lot of people have realized that they can work from home effectively a bit, you know, like not necessarily all the time, but like businesses continued operating very successfully. Some struggled for sure, but you know, some just continued on and had to make some adjustments, but like they didn't go under because people were working from home. So as people go back, it's like, do you need to go back to 100% and never work from home? And this is kind of like a personal thing for me, because a previous job, part of the reason I ended up leaving it was I had gone to working from home when we had one of our first children. Because I was working, and then, you know, he was very easy, and I just watch him during the day, and then he took a lot of naps, as you know, young ones do. But then at some point they just kind of arbitrarily said, you've got to come back into the office. And I was asking about, well, could we kind of like do a, you know, split time thing, whatever. And they're just like, no, you just got to come in. And when I really asked them about why, their answer was, well, because other people are asking if they can work from home. I'm like, what does that have to do with me? Like, answer their question. That's a legitimate question. So I think it's just like, I'm hoping that we are discovering some things like that. And why do I say work from home? Not because I like being lonely all day and not talking and hanging out with my coworkers, but a day here and there where my lunch break, I can just walk upstairs and eat that, with my kids and my wife. It's kind of nice, and like, so being able to like spend a little bit more time where you're like not running around and like spending your whole day and commuting and stuff, just like slowing down a little bit. And then people who are forced not to, to not be able to participate in their sports and extracurriculars and all those things. I hope people see it's like, hey, life continued. Nothing, broke because you couldn't participate in that. So maybe let's not just re-enter life on that level of intensity with like things all the time.
Life finds a way, as they say.
Right.
Yeah. You know, it's a silly thing that I kind of miss. Like, I don't miss lockdowns per se, but that initial lockdown, we were all united. Like, we don't know what this is. Yeah. We're gonna do this together. 2 weeks to stop the spread. Year and a couple months later.
Year later.
Like that. 2 weeks.
Yeah,
I know.
Oh
like,
God, 2 weeks.
And I mean, that's a whole thing of like marketing just being like such a ridiculous part of this. But that idea that, okay, we're all going to do this together. We're going to take these, extra measures. And like, I loved it for a short amount of time because I felt like a kid again. Like, I didn't have to adult really, really hard because it's like, you can't go out, you have to stay in. So all your events are canceled. So nobody can be like, hey, can you help me with this thing? Because you can't help them with that thing. You got to stay home. We gotta hang out. We gotta watch movies. We gotta play games. It felt almost a little bit like summer camp to me, at least for a few weeks.
Day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I totally
and
agree.
what was that?
Like a nationwide snow day.
Yeah, that's absolutely what it was. And we weren't arguing and like, you're stupid. No, science, and because that whole science thing. I feel like we're better now. Like, we'll read more information, just so we don't sound as stupid as, we often look. But like, it's so funny. As soon as I saw like the J&J, they stopped the vaccine of that one because 6.5 million or something had blood clots. And immediately I said to myself, well, that's not statistically significant. And then I did a little bit more researching and there's like, oh, you're more likely to die from or get struck by lightning twice in the United States than you are to have an adverse effect from that. And it's like, I've appreciated that too, like just being a more critical thinker as opposed to, and we still do this. I still do this a little like, oh, I read a title, therefore I'm an expert on this subject.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. Exactly. One of the things that it illuminated me too, and this is just kind of whatever, is the nature of the news cycle. So in other words, I just started honestly watching a multitude of news sources and trying to find out what the truth was, I mean, I felt like as a preservation person, it was important for me to be like, I want to live, so, on one side, you had this very fearful approach to coronavirus and people are dying in record numbers. And then these other kind of people that were like, the earth is flat. Don't worry about it. We'll be fine. And then, so it was like somewhere in between there, I just started watching the news cycle. And for me, and I'm not saying how anybody else should feel, but for me, was receiving totally different news. That's for me. And I had never done that before. I had never really realized how different the news cycle was. And one of the things that I noticed about it is I compared to the news to when I was young. When I was young, you watched the news and they would tell you the temperature. They would tell you what sports teams in your town won or lost or what, happened. There'd be significant things. As something happened, whatever. But then there was almost no opinion other than that. There wasn't this opinion about the news. And what I noticed with the coronavirus is it was tied to previous opinions. So no matter what the person was talking about, the fact, it was as if the news cycle was making it more fervent. So like, in other words, a conservative news program would take a fact and it would prove their point, and then the liberal news would come and see the same fact and it would prove their point, and the 2 points were completely contradicting them. I was like, what? That can't happen. You know,
Right.
so if you were just looking at it like I'm not tied to this, like I'm not pro one side or the other, just be American and not a Republican or Democrat or conservative or liberal, and you just start realizing like there's no way we're living in the same news cycle here, you know? And it was making people divided. So for me, it made me, when you said more American, it made me feel more American, because what I actually decided consciously to do is I said to myself, I have some really wonderful liberal friends and I love them. And I have some really wonderful conservative friends and I love them. So I'm going to be an American and I'm just going to let them have their faith and their opinions and their things, but I'm just not going to engage in that shit. I'm just going to be, no, it's too much for me. You know what I mean? So I was fighting into the, deep end of that apple. No, this is the way it should be. No. Then
Yeah.
No, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's about
and it's so different too. And that's, so to John's point of like the things that I like we actually get to hang out with you guys, when right now, I don't know, lots of states probably don't let other people in and don't recommend travel and still or whatever, but we get to hang out with you, and we, might not normally have that opportunity with this program or whatever, just due to budget, but we get to hang out with you, which is awesome. And we get to have a real conversation with you, which is amazing. And like, we're starting in this place of like, hey, we don't necessarily know each other, but we're going to be, and I'm going to just keep going with that. Like, we're going to be good Americans, and we're going to listen, and we're going to, extend some mercy. And what we want is something good. We both want something. We may have completely different ideas on lots of different topics, but we're here to create something better, to hang out, and enjoy this time. And I think that's part of the difference too. Like, the news can be so one-sided, or social media can just be somebody shouting, or, like that analogy, pissing into the wind. But if we can just hang out, I might, one of my friends who is crazy over here on this side, like we might easily find common ground and be like, oh yeah, let's talk about this. Okay, well, we disagree. Why do we disagree? And that's a fundamental difference to what we experience from the news just coming at us and what we experience on social media. So, I mean, that's part of what I hope we can kind of do with this, is like hang out with interesting people and have interesting conversations like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
So this I don't have a good segue. This might be a left turn. So Dave, I'm curious on your teaching. Have you been, there's another friend of ours who does some composing, and he's done some composing for us for some short projects, and he's been doing lessons over video. He teaches a lot of music, and he's got some programs and stuff that he uses. Are you teaching online? Were you able to take any of your teaching online, and how does that work? I mean, obviously there's a delay. You can't like play along with people, but
yeah, that's the biggest difference is you cannot play with someone. My degree, I have a degree in jazz. So one of the, fundamental precepts and core components in jazz is to be able to improvise, which really requires to listen to other people in the ensemble you're playing with, and to groove correctly with that. So as a guitar player, you're listening to a drummer and a bassist, piano player, or horns or something in a traditional jazz setting, right? And so you're listening, and then the process in improv. So online, you can't do any of that. That's just not possible, So until they have an internet which is, no latency in time, no lag. That's not. You can do some teaching, obviously, because it's here you guys are in Madison, we're in Chicago. It's like we're having a real time conversation. So there's a lot of information to be passed, certainly, but it's not. I miss the you're right there with the person. You know what I'm saying? I really do, but. Then I would, it's somewhere between excellent and stinks, like it's right in the middle. There's some things that are great about it.
Yeah.
Obviously, no commute time for somebody. I've had students like I had a student in Amsterdam, and it's like you have people from pretty remote places. The one thing that I do notice that how the coronavirus has changed me is I've committed to putting my stuff now into digital and to do a online like a teaching site with videos and stuff. So we're just right now brainstorming, Sarah and I, on how to put like some of the experts that she has and what she's done with
Yeah.
to work for doing some like educational site.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
My oldest son is learning. He plays piano, and he's been able to do that in person with a local teacher. But then trombone, he's been learning. He was in a concert band, and that went online. And so that kind of works because he's just playing stuff for the teacher, and then she'll give him some feedback. But then they did a concert where they sent the recording out to everyone, and we didn't have like studios and stuff. I do have a musical background, and I have some stuff, but they just recorded them like on a phone or whatever. So they recorded their part listening to the recording, and then sent that in, and the band teacher's husband like cut that together just to time everything up, and then put that into a virtual like concert. And that was kind of fun because then we had the opportunity for like my parents in South Dakota to like watch and see the thing,
right.
And so people who couldn't participate, usually. But yeah, it was different for sure, but it was still kind of like a fun thing they're able to do.
Yeah. Did you say, Sarah, did you play piano or something? I can't remember.
I play piano, yeah. I was actually a music major back in college. So I started playing when I was 7 and took formal lessons until I was about 22. And then during college, I realized I didn't want to pursue music, and I switched over to math. But so I do have a background, but my strong point is I can read music very well. I have a very hard time improvising. So it's kind of interesting because Dave and I come from 2 totally different backgrounds, and we have interesting and we try to help each other out. We're always jamming over here at home on the piano and stuff. And
I'm fascinated by this too. I think you mentioned that maybe in one of the messages or bios or something you sent, but that idea, like you're maybe more classically trained. Dave, you said you had the degree in jazz, and like obviously they're both music, but I've always appreciated the jazz side because I guess maybe I'm more classical because I did band and music into college in singing, and so I had a more classical approach, but did a little bit of dabbling in jazz, and then in college with the music did a little bit more kind of improv with some of the singing that we did. But I'm fascinated by kind of the parallel yet different thought processes, like with jazz, it's like, okay, well, here's some chord progressions, but you're just going to have a minute and a half where you just do whatever the F you want. And you have to tell a story with that minute and a half or whatever it is. You want to start something simple, get people engaged, then have some kind of rising action, get to a point, climax, and then come back down, bring us back into that song that we were just playing. Right. Yeah. So there's a musicality there that's insane. And I think same thing with classical, just kind of that classical traditional, like here is a style of music that you're just going to hear and it's just going to make sense, through your core. And so I would love to, I don't know, I don't think I have a question, but just hear more about your guys' experience of maybe jamming together with the classical, with the jazz, and how that jives,
Very interesting.
Well, Sarah's, very interesting how she approaches music from my perspective, and I say that not in a bad or a good way, just as an observational way. She needs to see things written down. So, like, and it's sort of kind of paralleled in life. Yeah. She wants to put lists together.
I'm very logical oriented,
boom,
Yeah.
And I tell her, float through life. I just float.
Dave does float. I
just float through
life. That's
life.
what we always say. He's just like super chill and figures it out. He's a great improviser with everything. Dave, just as a side note here, is a phenomenal cook, and he just like goes in the kitchen and starts making stuff.
She needs a recipe. She needs to sit down and say, "Well, this is what we're gonna make. These are the ingredients that I make, and then that's it." So I go get chicken and I make it, or I'm like, "And this is what we're gonna do." Well, I look in the cupboard. That's what we're making.
Yeah.
You know, and I just do. I don't have a recipe for whatever. I just I like that taste. Let's do this.
Yeah.
You know.
But going back to music, it's funny because you can pretty much put any sheet music down in front of me and I can play it, and I almost
yeah, she's really good at it.
But I feel like a robot sometimes because it's weird from my experience. For me, it's hard for me to look at my hands, and I know that sounds crazy, but you could probably put something between my eyes and my hands, and I could play it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I just need to look at music and I can play it.
And she'll be up at the piano and playing, and it's like
Turn the music.
It's like, wow.
It's so true.
So that's not the way, you know, that my focus goes. What it is for me is like, you know, my degree being in jazz, music theory plays a very high role in how you approach things. You know what I mean? So we'll take chords and the relationship between chords or rhythms and how a melody would work and structure, and you bend them and you shape them, you mold them, and you get all the new kinds of relationships that exist between like multiple, you know, like different chords in a chord progression, or what scales you can play over the top of that, and then the infinite number of combinations that come from it. And that's what's exciting to a contemporary player, a more modern or jazz based player, you know. I'm not in any way, when I started my major in college, I was originally a classical major, and I very much enjoyed the structure. I think that's a really, you know, cool thing, but just that would not work for me. So, you know, just to have structure, it's like everybody knows at the end, this is what it's going to sound like. And I don't know. I like the newness and the variety that exists in improvisation, you know. When you get together with better players, everybody sounds better, you know, and it's just an amazing thing, you know. It's just a real fun.
Yes.
Fun.
Dave's he's got this jazz fusion band, which is off the charts. It is amazing. It's him and 3 other guys, and they never practice. They literally start playing, and it's like you guys would be blown away by the music they do.
Yeah,
and
it's kind of like
insane.
It's like we'll start doing a tune, and then it'll go in this really wacky direction. You know, we'll play like a modern, like a rock tune, but do it as like a bossa nova, or we'll take a tune that's normally in 4/4 and play it like a waltz or something, or like in 5, we'll put it in a different time signature, or the keyboard player in the mid song will go, let's change keys, like, and bam, and there we go, right there. And then the guys in that band, for whatever reason, all have really experienced lives and playing, and then we just go do that. So everybody out in the crowd is like kind of freaked, but laughing in a way, kind of like, I can't believe they just did that, you know. Or some melody will show up. It'll be like this really solemn ballad, you know, and somebody will play the Flintstones over it right in the middle of their solo, you know, and like, what the heck are they doing, you know? So it's kind of like, that's the stuff that for me musically really gets me excited, you know. But you know, I mean, that's not the only thing there is in obviously, when you're playing with good players, like I play in a cover band, classic rock cover band, that's a completely different kind of concept. And I'm in a new band, actually, a band called Fidelity, great bunch of guys. And so the fun, you know, the art in doing something like that is like, you know, it's just a different vibe than, say, something jazz. You know what I'm saying? In a cover band, it's like you're trying to get the band to sound like those songs you've heard all of your life, you know. And when you've got a really great singer that's doing it and the guitar players around it, it just brings you back to that time when you first heard the tunes, you know. So anyway,
so what's jamming like then? Do you kind of start with like, okay, here's going to be this symphony and I'm going to play this movement on your side, Sarah, and then Dave, you come in and you're like, all right, I'm gonna riff on top, let's see what happens. Like, what is that like for you guys?
We can do a lot of what we've done is kind of like I also play some piano. I'm not,
He's actually really good at piano.
but yeah, I can play piano. But
Well, it's funny because I'll sit down and I'll play a classical piece. I'll get up and Dave will sit down and like almost play the same classical piece that I just played. He just like sits down and plays it.
well, it's not actually that true. But
Pretty close. Pretty close.
I sit down and kind of use my ear to
Yeah,
kind of,
Yeah, but you
Sometimes-
hear it and you feel it and you have the musicality such that you can get close. But yeah, maybe not hitting all the notes and all the little pieces, but
Right.
it sounds similar to the untrained ear, maybe. Or maybe even the trained ear too. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's fun too because sometimes I sit down and we'll talk about a chord structure and he'll start playing like the left hand or the bass, and I have a really hard time improvising. So he'll kind of guide me like play something or play these notes and create like a little riff, and I try my hardest and
she's as cute
I'm
as
just
hell,
not
though.
I'm just not that good. And I know
She
I need to
doesn't
practice
mind.
it more.
She's as cute as could be. Though she's like she can sit down playing like a Bach two-part invention, and then
Yeah.
you give her like a song. What?
What?
How did you?
Well, it
what
was
was
funny
that?
because back in college, one of my jazz teachers that I work with, we were working on improvising, and so I had the left hand down with the chords, and he's like, "Okay, just you play something in the right hand." And I'm like, I looked at him, I'm like, "What do you want me to play?" He goes, "You have to make it up." And I'm like, "I don't know what to play." And it's just
Yeah,
it's so
sure.
hard for so used to structure and
Yeah. Did you ever play for, I don't know, an accompaniment or a band or something like that, where you had to kind of just like, okay, well they're just going to go 2 more verses, so I'm going to keep going here.
honestly not in that aspect. I mean, in high school, I was the accompanist for all the choirs, but it was
Mhm.
all music. The choir director used to just give me music to learn, and even
Mhm.
if it was jazz, I would have the music in front of me. So
Yeah.
I was never taught my entire life how to improvise or how to like jam. And going from the age of 7 to 22, that many years with like structured training, it's like really hard for me to flip my mind. And I do want to learn how to do it because I feel like half a musician, if that makes sense. I feel like I'm lacking.
Oh,
a big
interesting.
part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder too, like I love, it's interesting as you guys are describing how you guys think. I feel like I have, small aspects of that. Like I love lists. I love organization. I'm not super great at it, and I flow a lot. Or float a lot. Like, okay, what are we going to do in this situation? Okay, well, I didn't quite prep for it, so here's what we're going to do. Oh, well, that turned out awesome. But I always strive, and I think I do some stuff in a very organized fashion. So I guess I kind of struggle in between the two. But with like music for me, like I think I can do a little bit of both. And I just love that idea of having a musicality or an understanding of musicality such that you can just be like, okay, like let's start in G, like we're going to start in G. Let's get some chords going. Let's feel those chords. All right, now let's take a somber tone. Let's play, let's go into a minor key real quick and play a little bit of that and feel how that goes. And let's pick it up. Let's spring it a little bit more. Let's do, something that's a little bit more active. And I'd be curious to see, you should totally do this and put it on YouTube or something, but like, okay, Dave's gonna, show me how to get comfortable in this chord and just play something, right? And you don't have any music, the chord, you could probably play something ridiculous in that key that you have memorized, but don't play that thing that's memorized. Just, get some bass going or some left hand going to get that and play some fun melody in that key. Doesn't have to be good. I would love to see your progression of now
we want to do
to jamming.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of our goals, is to kind of do something together in terms of music or Mm-hmm.
We did a thing for
Something. What did we record? What was that song called?
Auld Lang Syne.
Yeah.
Oh,
During-
yeah, Auld Lang Syne, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So she printed a piano track, and then I recorded some crazy guitar stuff here at the studio. So I
Nice.
mean, for me, having teaching me music my whole life, there's just different sides. There's different kind of approaches. The guitar in general is an instrument that doesn't lend itself as well to reading.
Right.
Most guitar players are not either don't read or are not good readers to begin with. So somebody like myself, who, compared to guitar players, I would call myself an awesome a reader. But that's largely because guitar players are just almost illiterate, in terms of being able to look at the page and read, but so teaching at colleges, obviously you wouldn't be able to do that with not being able to read. But, a high school like horn player or, first chair, saxophone player type, they just were reading their whole life, off they go. The guitar's got some funny ways, because what's weird about guitar is, like, you can play middle C and you can play that exact same C in other places on exact same C, Whereas in piano, there's just one place to play it. You can play it with 10 different fingers, but it never changes from that place, So the idea of reading for guitar requires just a whole nother thing. And it's just all stringed instruments to that extent, or fretted instruments even mostly, but there's also not method books for that stuff. So, guitar method books and reading, it just they don't exist. Piano, there's plenty of books for piano and keyboard that have existed through the centuries. You can buy books by great masters. You can buy, not only that, but music all written. You can't find that stuff for guitar. Guitar still is, technically a pretty new instrument in the course of, organized music. It's a pretty new instrument. And 100 years is, still a relatively short period of time,
It's actually kind of funny. It's kind of funny too, to, like, looking at music history and, like, the harpsichord, predating the piano. Like, you couldn't even change the volume. Like, when you press down, it would, like, flip a trigger and it would strike the string at the same volume every single time. So if you want to do gain volume, you had to add another harpsichord, and, like, so they would just have multiple and they'd all play at the same time. So the ability to have the expression of playing louder or quieter on the piano was, like, a new thing for the piano.
Yeah.
I'm curious too.
The name means
go ahead.
Forte. Piano forte just means, in this particular case, soft loud. The name piano. It was called forte, which means soft loud. The instrument was called soft loud. Hey, Bob, let's go play the soft loud.
Ryan, I was going to ask you, what instrument do you play? You're a singer?
So I played trumpet through high school, but then I was kind of self-taught in piano, and sang middle school, high school, college, and I still sing at things today. So yeah.
And then John, what about you? What do you play?
I play guitar. I taught myself. My dad kind of got me started in when I was in about 5th grade, and then I did it through that. I did a jazz band in high school, which is by far the best I ever got at guitar. And then because I didn't continue practicing in that way, I've lost some. But my dad used to have a kind of a garage band, or play restaurants and bars, and then I kind of followed in those footsteps. And it was funny. I was thinking about, he gave me this book one time, just his old books, that's called like Pop Rock Fakes or something. And I was thinking about it. I was like, yeah, that idea of kind of like this is how I was in school too. Like, you could put me in front of a room and tell me I had to give a speech, and I could probably do it and kind of fake like I knew what I was doing. And that's like a little bit like our band, there were a couple bands in our high school, not a ton, we were a small high school. And there was another band that I really liked. I thought they were actually better than us. And, they had an original song, a couple original songs that I thought were really great. But we would play all these covers of like classic rock and alternative rock, and we would book shows. We would book we'd book the car show. We'd book, some actually a wedding dance or two. We'd book some, little things, because like we were kind of playing things that, would make people remember that nostalgia, those songs. do a lot of covers, and then you slip an original in, and then you get back to the covers before you lose too many people. Yeah, so I play guitar. I still play it. I like lead a lot of like worship music for our church group and stuff, and it's a lot of that improvisation. You're like, okay, we're gonna continue for a while on this. Like, we're gonna vamp here for a bit. So
Vamp.
Taking the group with you, and then we've had a piano player, or two like come in and be like, I don't know what we're doing right now. We're like, just stay,
That would
just
be me.
stay there. You're like, yeah.
Oh my God.
Let's see.
So I learned. So I was in concert band then in school. I played trombone. I just have it. That's why my son is playing it. And then I was also in choir. So that's where like I learned to read music. So then I kind of combine it. Yeah, I agree with you, Dave. It's actually affirming to hear you say that, because I've always wondered. I'm like, I know basically how to read music, but like, how do you know where you're supposed to play that, like on the guitar specifically?
Yeah. It's pretty complex. There's a handful of Berkeley University. Berkeley has got some books that they've used through the years that are pretty good reading books for guitar. But the fact of the matter is no, they don't have. There's not a good system in existence, and the reason it's not a good system is, guitar players, the things you like about guitar are, the guys playing a screaming, really ripping guitar solo, right? Well, so that usually has pretty advanced rhythms, and it means that the guy's doing something tricky, going from position to position up and down the neck, and that just doesn't. You could play it sometimes the exact same guitar solo in like 30 or 40 different logical ways, and that just is too much information. So guitar players just go, heck with it, forget it, I'll use my ear. That's how they go about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why I like the game Guitar Hero, because you just have one set of keys. And I can play all those with just 5. I think there's 5 of them on there. It's fantastic.
I had some roommates who were in a band when I was in college, and the lead guitarist of that band, lead singer, guitarist, he was really, really good. He didn't even know the names of the chords he was playing. He had no idea. And if I really like pushed him on it, he could kind of figure it out, work his way to it. But like, it was amazing. I'm like, I just don't understand you. I don't understand how you're that good and you don't know. Because he would just and he would play a lot of interesting, it was like a post-punk, modern rock, whatever you want to call that. So he'd kind of like play around and like make up his own chords, which were clearly chords, but he just didn't know what they were. And he'd just keep tweaking it until he had the sound that he liked. It's like, oh, that's really interesting what you're doing. You have no idea, but it's interesting.
It's working.
Yeah, that's what's interesting about music too, is that maybe it's a little more apparent, because like what we do a lot of video production, commercial, narrative projects. And with people, when I see content and I'm like, there's something off, I feel like people aren't necessarily as discerning as we are with music. And maybe it's because we just have more experience and more reps in of listening to music, of judging what we like and what we don't like. And I feel like with music and good art, there's trends that are just good. Like I can maybe even listen to some screamo, which I'm not a big fan of, or maybe some hard metal, which I'm not a fan of, and be like, yeah, this is good stuff. I don't like the loudness. I don't like maybe some of the content, but I can tell that it's good. Maybe with other art where you can't quite tell, and so people get away with stuff like commercials and narratives. I'll see a commercial, and people I'm with will be like, that didn't make sense, and I'm like, you're right, it was not well done, but but I guess the bars may be lower because again, you don't have those reps as much with like music. Like you're playing, I don't know, how many songs do you play in a show? Like 20? Like
Well, usually around 30.
30? Yeah. So, you're playing a lot. There's a lot of content. We're consuming a lot of that. And I think we can be maybe more objective in our tastes. I don't know. Maybe I'm totally wrong with that, but like that's why I love musicality, because I feel like I can share something and John can be like, oh, that's interesting. It's not really my cup of tea, but I think it, that sounds really, really cool, or that's very, very unique,
Right. Mm-hmm.
I think for me, I feel like there's two kinds of music, good music and or I didn't want to say bad. Maybe that's not bad, but music I enjoy and music I don't enjoy,
Mm-hmm.
And so there's country that I like and country that I don't like. I have my issue with like some of the rap stuff. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that stuff. I mean, I define music by rhythm, harmony, and melody played by humans. And so if it's not played by humans, then I don't know. I don't understand, I guess there's some sort of an inner value there, but I don't
Sure.
I don't whatever.
Well, and it's interesting, right? So maybe digital music, how new is that, right? Like super popular nowadays, but is it 20 years old maybe with specific computer developments, and now you can even get to the point where you can have samples. And for me, like I think that's one of the big differences for me, and kind of what you're talking about is like good samples. Like if the samples are really, really well produced, really well recorded, and it's put together in a way that I can't tell that it's not live, somebody's not playing that drum part. Drums are probably the most noticeable. That drum part or those strings or something. I think that's really interesting because it gives some opportunity for somebody to compose something that they might not be able to put together. Now, the downside is a lot of it's crappy, like people don't have good samples, people don't do good digital producing, and it doesn't sound great. So yeah, I mean, I'm curious, like we talk about the singularity, like the mind and digital coming together, but that's what we're talking about in music. Like, is there going to be a point where we can't even tell if it's a human or not?
Yeah, that would be sad. Mm-hmm.
Well, I would hate to think there was a day where like a real violin or an actual guitar or an acoustic drum set was, or any one of a number of things weren't being played anymore. That would be difficult. That'd be a difficult thing to stomach. But I think there will always be, as long as there's human beings living on planet Earth, there will be human beings enjoying music. And there's something fashioned about seeing something performed and liking it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we're oh no, that's great. This will be good. We're kind of winding down here. It's about 1:20. I do want to respect your guys' time. We often will do this 2 truths and a lie. Now, I believe we played that last time, Sarah. So let's see. Maybe it won't put you on the spot. We'll just make Dave do it this time, and we can certainly vamp while he thinks about things. But basically what we do here is you tell us 3 different stories. One of them is a lie. The other 2 are truths in no particular order. You're trying to trick us. And then we all get to vote to try and see what is true and what is not. So it's kind of a fun chance just to get to know you. And you don't have to have that right now. We can vamp a little so you can think about it if you'd like.
So it's 2 truths and 1 lie?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. It's kind of our Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon talk show game.
I feel like there's 0 chance that I'm going to be able to identify these with him.
I know. I almost just asked earlier, what's the craziest story you have that you want to share online?
I have some crazy ones.
Yeah.
I have some really crazy ones, actually. I don't know. I'm going to go with the PG versions of some of these. All right. I have to think about the two.
Yeah,
Two truths.
Yeah, you can think about that, and if you want to write it down too, I can grill Sarah while you're thinking about this. We definitely need a plug from you guys, because I want to share your music and the websites again. I think I shared the websites last time, but want to make sure that we share iAchieveLearning.com. And is it SarahAKochan.com? I'll put those up. Okay.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, we want to rep you guys. And then does Dave have a URL? I know you have a personal URL. It was like I saw like updates coming soon from 2 years ago.
Is your website up?
Yes. Yeah. I've got to think of a good line.
Did I say it right?
Is
it Dave Uhrich?
Dave Uhrich.
Uhrich, yeah.
Dave Uhrich. Uhrich. Yeah. I'm not even really good at lying, so I can't. I gotta find.
By the way, your name is badass too. Just Dave Uhrich. Like, I don't know. It sounds kind of like a composer, rocker kind of guy.
Everyone says Uhrich, and actually, I think I called you Uhrich when I first met him too. There's no L.
Yeah,
Uhrich.
I definitely wanted to do that, but I read it a second time and I was like, oh, better get that right. I mean, I called you Sarah in my mind until we talked on the phone, Kochan, for like the longest time.
No, everybody does that. I think, it's funny because when I was growing up, I think I actually thought that was my last name, and then one day my dad corrected me, and I'm like,
oh my gosh,
so it's Kochan,
that's awesome.
but people say Kochan. I think it's really pronounced Kochan, so I always emphasize that. But yeah, doesn't matter. I get a lot of Cochrans too. People will say Cochrane. I'm like,
oh, did you just slap them? You're like, actually read the words.
Kochan.
I know, but I've butchered a lot of people too.
Yeah.
I mean, back when I was a high school teacher, so gosh, every year when I would look at my students, the roster for the students that you're teaching, I'm like, oh my gosh, have these names.
Mm-hmm. I'd also love to know if you guys can plug. Do you play at a place regularly in Chicago, or do you play at a lot of different places? Because I'd love to know where that is.
I'm in a new band called High Infidelity. It's rock. It's a cover band, rock and roll kind of stuff, classic rock mostly. Bands like REO Speedwagon, Styx, Boston, Journey. So we're playing at a place called Bannerman's, and then a place called Dirty Nelly's, and then that's the next few weeks. But
yeah, but they're all over the Chicagoland area.
Do you have that information on your website? I don't know if I saw that. Or do you have Facebook or something?
I just joined this band, so I'm going to have the Dave Uhrich site updated with links to the High Infidelity site, but not just yet. But
perfect.
I'm still trying to commensurate with the truths. The truths actually sound like lies.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah, as soon as you get that content, send that over. I'd love to share it. We just took a trip to Minneapolis for our anniversary. Spent 2 nights there and did some restaurants and stuff. But we've been talking about Chicago. Like, we're so close. Let's just run down there, spend a night or two, hang out, do stuff in the city now that you can actually do stuff. So I'd love to come see you play.
Yeah, you guys totally should.
All right, Dave, you got your stories?
I got it. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, just, yeah.
Yeah, and
right,
I was gonna say, you kind of want to keep all the stories. You want to tell them in a similar way. Like, if you give way too many details on one, but not the other two, that can be indicative. Yeah. You haven't had the benefit of hearing other people go, but you want to try to trick us. That's your goal.
Last for it. Do I just do a sentence and then tell you the truth and then the truth? Just do them in any order, right?
Yeah, you could do them in any order, and just give us, a couple sentences of the story. Doesn't have to be much. We can have follow-up questions. You can choose to answer them or choose not to answer them, especially if you can trick Sarah. Like, that'd be great if we can trick Sarah.
We'll try to guess. We'll try to guess the lie.
All right. So one is event, situation, truth or lie. Truth or lie. Number one is that Eddie Van Halen kissed me in the face. That situation is from playing a show that was related and whatnot. Another situation number two is Deepak Chopra and I became pen pals, writing little letters to and fro and back and forth from one to one another. And then the third one is Ted Nugent took me bow hunting, and I almost shot him. So with one of those bows. So
Would you say who took you hunting? You said
so. Ted Nugent, you know who Ted is. Ted, guitar player, Stranglehold, and he was in a band called Amboy Dukes. Ted Nugent, here I come again now, baby. Anyway, but yeah, so those are the three. You can ask me questions, and I'll give you as much information as is.
You said you almost shot Ted with a gun or with a bow, or what were you hunting?
One of those bows, you know, he's into the bows and stuff. He's trying to show me how to pull the bow back like that and stuff. And then so you go shoot him at a target and stuff. And I was just taking the bow, just kind of feeling the tension back. And he walked up front and I almost let go. And it kind of went a little too close. So kind of, you know, you're not supposed to do that. I'm not really good at bow hunting. He's really good at bow hunting. He has his own group of stores, which are like all related to like, you know, hunting and stuff. This would make Sarah very, very mad.
If this is not the truth, you should definitely act because it's phenomenal.
Ask me another question.
Who was the name of the pen pal?
Deepak Chopra.
Yeah, how did you meet him?
It is.
I went to a meditation seminar with him in Asheville, North Carolina. It was at the whatchamacallit estates, the what do they call it? That real famous estate there, and it was with a friend of mine, John Butcher, who from Precious Moments, and I don't know, for whatever reason, there was like a couple hundred people at this seminar, and then he just approached me at the day we were leaving, and I just was very grateful and thanking him for helping me through a real difficult time in my life. And he gave me his address, and I said, you know, I'd really like your books. There was one book that I read from his, which was really great, The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. And I just told him I loved that. This seminar was on the 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. And sure enough, I had a business card too, and I gave it to him. And he started writing to me and giving me supportive material. And I was like, fuck, that's crazy. Deepak Chopra and I writing to one another. Just pen pals. I mean, I wouldn't call it pen pals in the sense of like, hey, you know, here we are. How you doing, Deepak?
Today I talked to Sarah. It was wonderful.
Yeah, I should say pen pals maybe is the best way of explaining that.
Sure.
But,
and then was it Eddie Van Halen you said kissed you in the face?
Eddie Van Halen kissed me in the face. Yeah.
Yeah. What's the story there?
I played in 1996. I played a benefit, the Jason Becker benefit, and Eddie Van Halen played, and I played at it. And long story short, prior to that, the guitar players, myself included, a number of well-known guitar players, donated our time and skills and whatnot to a guitar player who had ALS by the name of Jason Becker. He played in the band with David Lee Roth. So to make a long story short, Eddie Van Halen, of course, was in Van Halen, and David Lee Roth was the singer. And so Eddie signed on and did his thing. So the night before the benefit, we were at the Hard Rock Cafe in Chicago, and we sat down and started talking. And believe it or not, he was the nicest guy in the world. And we just chatted for probably, I don't know, half hour. And at the end of that, he just grabbed my face and kissed me right on the side of the cheek, like dude kiss, but like, wow, like the king of guitar just kissed me. I was like, that was really cool. So.
Man, you should definitely act because there's no indicators here of what the lie is. That's good. That's very good.
Yeah.
What
do you guys think?
Yeah, John, you go first.
I think Ted Nugent is the lie. It's a very good lie, but I think it's the lie.
Almost shot him. All right. So I'll go next and then we'll have Sarah go last because you have the deepest knowledge of Dave. Let's see. I don't know. I like to believe they're all true. I like too. They're, kind of from slightly different areas, right? So you got more the music, you've got the spiritual, maybe the physical, like the hunting. Like, I like that. That's good. That's a pro move right there.
Dave's a great storyteller, by the way.
Yeah. I'm going to go with, so you picked number 3, Ted Nugent. I'm going to go Deepak because I really want the getting kissed in the face by Van Halen to be true. Like, that'd be amazing. Yeah. All right. Now, Sarah, do you know?
All right. So I'm kind of a little stumped. From my recollection, I thought honestly all 3 were true, but pretty sure it's number 3.
Okay, do I give up the ghost here?
Yep. Give up the ghost.
The lie was number 3.
Yeah. Okay.
I actually performed with and did some stuff.
Yeah, with Ted I remember you told me a story about him, and I'm like, I'm not sure if I remember all that. Those details.
Yeah. Ted was a little bit weird, but so I decided. I know he's like really into hunting and stuff, and I had to come up with a lie. I'm like, how do I get a lie that seems like true? But no, he comes out on stage and he has bows, stuff like that, and I've never done any kind of hunting like that, so I just thought, well, if I went hunting with him, then
you'd probably almost shoot him. That's great. That's the way you do it. You tell something that's very, very close, but just a little bit off. So that's great. You win. What's that?
Van Halen did kiss me in the face. And Deepak Chopra was definitely writing me handwritten notes, which I thought was really, very cool. So,
oh man, that's awesome. Well, it is 1:33 now, so I do want to wrap up. Thank you guys so much for coming on here. This is awesome, and I love just talking about whatever's interesting, and I appreciate you guys just kind of going into just personal thoughts over the last year and all that stuff. That was fantastic. This is actually kind of my favorite type of happy hour where we don't have to, try and get content. We just kind of go wherever the whim takes us. And it's fantastic. So thank you guys so much for coming on and doing this, having some drinks with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So I did put up those websites. They're there. iAchieveLearning.com, SarahKochan.com. You can get tutoring at iAchieve. You can, if you're a lady business owner, you may get some assistance in growing your business from Sarah Kochan at her website, SarahKochan.com. And we've got Dave Uhrich there. .com, which he's going to update with his playing, his schedule, because I need to know that because I want to come down.
It's on highinfidelity.com, infidelity.com /tour for the dates.
Check that out. I'll check that out. Let's see. Next week, we've actually got Megan Mcduffie, who's a composer in California. I actually don't remember what city she's in, but she actually did a project with us about 6 years ago, maybe now, where she helped compose a song for a piece for the University of Wisconsin-Madison that we took the alma mater, we took the school song and we kind of made it into this promotional piece. She did a fantastic job. I've followed her since. She's been doing lots of great things on YouTube and other places in video games. So she's going to be on next week. Check that out. And that's what we got. John, you got anything else for me today?
Practice your instruments. You gotta keep going every day. A few minutes a day at least.
Yeah. Even if you're not great, just play. That's what I love about music. You do that enough and then you're like, oh, this actually doesn't sound shitty now. Awesome. Well, that's what we got. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Thanks. Bye, guys.